It's a great honor for me to be here to speak on this very, very important subject. Evolution, fact or fancy? Many of you know that 14th February is celebrated as Valentine's Day. But any one of you, have you heard the 12th February is celebrated as Darwin's Day? Yes, 12th February is celebrated as Darwin's Day, a celebration to commemorate the birthday of Charles Darwin on the 12th February 1809. The day is used to highlight Darwin's contribution to science. Like everywhere people celebrate, like visiting museum, attending exhibitions, and also reading his book. So they say that it's a celebration of science and reason. So it almost like evolution is a theory, and that is based on reason. So any other theory other than that is not based on reason. So Richard Dawkins, he says in his book, The Selfish Gene, and in one more, he has written The God Delusion. He has written a series of books, and many of his books have sold a million copies. In one of them, he says, it's absolutely safe to say that if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane. Maybe I will not call them wicked. And in one of his tweets, he said that about the people who teach their children that God created everything. How dare you force your unsubstantiated superstitions on innocent children, too young to resist? How dare he says about parents who teach about creation to their children. So his books were influential in converting many Christian youths back to atheism. Many left Christianity after reading it. One of them was Alan Cannon, who was brought up in a fundamental Christian household. He spent months collaborating with Darwin and helping him technically, but later he shed his faith and he became a Dawkins fan. So like this, Richard Dawkins' books have been quite influential amidst the youths. But before getting into a serious topic, I would like to tell an interesting story. A little girl asked her mother, how did the human race appear? The mother answered, God made Adam and Eve and they had children, and like that the human race appeared. So, and then 2 days later, the girl asked her father the same question. The father answered, many years ago, there were some monkeys and from which the humans evolved. So the confused girl returned back to her mother and said, Mom, how is it possible that you told me human race was created by God and dad is telling that they came from monkey? So the mother said, my dear, it's very simple. I told you about my side of my family. Your father might have told about his side. So apart from jokes, let's come to the real question. Is evolution fact or fancy? Every textbook shows that evolution is a fact. Yes, every science school textbook shows that way. So theistic, even if some of the Christians are evolutionists, they are called as theistic evolutionists. They believe that God directed evolution. So if so many people are supporting evolution, let us see whether it's a theory or it's a fanciful hypothesis. So what is a theory? All of us know the general theory of relativity is a theory. It has been proved multiple times through that relativity. We know that there is a one-time beginning to the universe. There is black holes are existing, universe is expanding, time dilation exists. Everything is predicted by his theory, and that is beyond doubt. But some people are telling some theories that there are many universes, parallel universes, based on string theory that cannot be tested at all. So we don't call them as theory. So what about evolution? So now what is evolution? The idea that species gradually change over many generations is a cornerstone of evolution. It sets out to explain how the first simple life gave to very huge diversity we see today. from bacteria to trees to blue whales to human beings. It's based on ideas like species change over time, only the fittest survive. And given enough time, these changes mount up and lead to the appearance of new species, new type of organism, one small change at a time. So what about you? You are descended through countless generations from a worm. Step by step, worms became fish, and fish came into land. And then one day they developed four legs, and then those four-legged animals grew hair, and eventually some of them started walking on two legs, and then called them humans. And finally, they discovered evolution. So now this is evolution. Now I wanted to tell you about four people who were the backbone of evolution in the 18th century, and then get into rigorous explanation from my presentations. So let me first tell you story, because before getting it into very in-depth theoretically, it's better to tell about stories. So who was Charles Darwin? Charles Darwin was born in England in 1809. Since Darwin's father was a physician, he also began his training to become a physician, a doctor. However, that did not interest him. So he moved on to Cambridge to study for Anglican priesthood. After graduating from Cambridge as a priest in 1833, he went on a 5-year journey as a naturalist to survey the South American coastlines. He also visited Galapagos Island. This journey helped him to collect thousands of specimens and discover new species like finches, barnacles, beetles. And he returned back to England in 1837. And then he was just 28 years old. So he scribbled in a notebook called Transmutation Notebook, one species changed into another. So that was the first hint to his theory. And in the same year, he sketched the tree of life, the interrelation between various species. But he writes, cuidado, that is, be careful. Evolution was a radical but dangerous idea. And he was scared to take it to public. So he worked on it for 20 more years. And finally, in 1858, Alfred Russel Wallace, he came forward, and he was a young naturalist, and he was a specimen collector, and he sent his works to Darwin. He has almost written a theory of evolution. So Darwin was worried, and he at once published in 1859 his famous book, The Origin of Species, on the origin of species. So now coming to this, after Russel Wallace, the third person was Lamarck. He was at that time trying to work like Darwin, but his theory was not like Darwin. His theory was based on betterment. For example, I have some animal, and the animal was having a smaller neck, but the trees are all too big. So all the animals started trying to get food, otherwise they will not get food. So slowly after some time, all the animals developed longer necks, and they became giraffe. So that's what he said. It's a betterment theory. Darwin said it is not based on betterment. It is based on survival of the fittest. For example, I have long, high trees, and now I have a smaller neck. So this particular person who has small neck will die. So the ones who adapted to eat from the tree, they will eat well and they will grow. So slowly, the shorter neck ones will die, and the longer neck ones will come. And that's what he said, natural selection. First, I said Darwin, and the second Wallace, and then the Lamarck, and then now coming to the fourth person is Gregor Mendel. He was a priest, and he was breeding pea plants, and he found that is based on some observable traits. For example, one flower has green and the other one has violet. The intermediary one will not have the middle color. So he said they are inheriting something from the father, from the ancestor. So it's called as genes now. So then if Darwin would have just listened to Mendel, they would have framed a better theory at that time. So Darwin didn't think that Mendel's work will help him. So with this, these are the 4 stories. But now how this great evolutionary theory came into existence. So now let me share my screen and explain you. Now, how it became a big, full-grown theory. Now you see in modern Darwinism, you have everything put together because in 20th century, Charles Darwin's hypothesis of modification of species by natural selection was integrated with Mendel's genetics. So now this random mutation of genes that ultimately leads to gradual changes that is based on that new species is forming. So Darwin's theory and Mendel's theory were united to get modern hypothesis. So what is a gene? Now, what is a gene? This is very important because if every textbook tells about all these things, we should know something about it. So I'm going to make it so simple. You please write down in your notes so it will be very useful. All the organisms, if you see, it's very complex. Molecular biologists have discovered that genes are, in fact, segments of DNA molecules. 68 years back, exactly in April, James Watson and Francis Crick cracked the code of DNA. They found the incredible ordered structures, a double helix structure. You know, all the information in the DNA is stored as a code. It's a language. So like, for example, you have 4 chemical bases, T, C, A, and G. You can see here it is adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So these are all chemical bases. So now let me just give you, okay. So their discovery brought an obscure scientific world into the public domain. So that much power it had. You know, you pass your genetic traits to your offspring. This DNA contains a complete instruction manual to build and make you and pass your genetic traits to your offspring. So it is more complex than anything else you can ever imagine. If you want to read it day and night, let's assume, you will take 31 years to read it because in one bit in your thing, take your cell, in one small tiny bit, lesser than a needle, you have 3.1 billion bits of data. And this information system is more complex than anything. It's not a complexity that is born out of randomness, but it is a complexity that is highly sophisticated and ordered. So Francis Collins, the director of the National Human Genome Project, said, when you have for the first time in front of you this 3.1 billion bits of instruction books that conveys all kinds of information, you can't survey that going through page after page without a sense of awe. When I look at those pages, I have a vague sense that it gives me a glimpse of God. You know, now in this DNA, how can mutations occur? It can occur sometimes. That's why some of the diseases can happen, sickle cell anemia and some other things. And so now, but how this mutation occurs and whether it is desirable or undesirable. Many of the mutations are waste. Only few give rise to constructive changes. You know, that's why it is very, very important. This DNA is essential to make proteins. So what are proteins? You know, proteins are enzymes you have in your body, like for digestive enzymes. So without proteins, you cannot have that. So now if you want to differentiate one protein for another, this sequence of amino acids is very important because proteins are chains of chemical building blocks called amino acids. I'm just explaining you so that how complex in your cell is. You will understand how important each and every cell in your body, how beautifully it is designed. So, you know, this journey from gene to protein is complex and tightly controlled. I'm not going to show you, it is amazing. And the information from DNA to protein is one of the fundamental principles of molecular biology. It's even called the central dogma. Earlier, DNA sequencing was very costly and it was not possible, but now they were able to do so many amount of DNA sequencing. But now if there is so much information in one tiny dot, now where from this information came into existence? First of all, you have a dictionary. Let us assume. Can a dictionary come on its own? Somebody has to write it. So now if there is so much information in a small tiny bit, how come the first cell can come into existence? Let me just show you this.
DNA is a molecule that's found within the cell. It has a captivating double helix structure, intricacy of function. In this picture, they are represented but must be in the proper sequence. In other words, the sequences on protein.
So you can see here in this particular thing, this is a cell. To get a cell, this is a DNA, and a portion of it, and you can call it as gene. And now this gene, and based on this amino acid sequencing, you get a proteins. Now let me show you after some time what is a molecular machine. From that, you get a cell, and from that, you get community of cells based on cell division. You just go into molecular biology, you will understand how complex you are. You are so fearfully and wonderfully made that word makes sense when you understand molecular biology. It's something amazing. Now, can chemistry become biology? Can inorganic chemistry become organic chemistry? How did the first life come into existence? Earlier scientists thought that the secret of life came into existence on its own spontaneously. But when they discovered DNA, they understood such a complex molecule cannot come on its own. How could a self-replicating information carrying immensely complex molecule like that spontaneously arise from inorganic compounds? Now, let's say in this 1953, University of Chicago graduate student Stanley Miller announced that in the laboratory of his PhD advisor, Harold Urey, he could experimentally show the lightning in the Earth's primitive atmosphere could have produced amino acids. He thought, okay, earlier people were all believing this Miller-Urey experiment through this living beings can come into existence because somehow it could produce the two amino acids and from which everything came into existence. So Miller used a closed glass apparatus like this, and in which he boiled water and circulated the steam with a mixture of methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. So he thought that Earth's early atmosphere had all these things. He never knew Earth's early atmosphere had oxygen. So he thought in a reducing atmosphere, he could generate two amino acids. But if you see here in this, he has used a trap. But without this trap, it's very dangerous. It can even damage DNA. So he had to remove the existing things to get a new one. So there were a lot of mistakes. First of all, he never used oxygen in his thing. And then he used a trap and like this. And finally, he got only two amino acids. So finally, initially people were thought, okay, every paper told, but we have found how life came into existence. And then slowly when knowledge grew, actually people were telling now our technology has grown to such an extent that we are able to do everything. But now, technology, when it is growing, we are able to find more evidence for God than anything else. People thought there were gaps earlier, but science will fill it. But now the gaps are getting widened. So that's what people are finding out, because most of the toxic amino acids should be left-handed. I don't know why it is. It's a great mystery. For example, if you have blood glucose, sugar levels are so high, you might tell. Sugars are needed for building your energy level. All the sugars in your DNA and RNA are right-handed. What do you mean by right-handed and left-handed? Look at your hand. Look at your finger, foot. If you put a gloves, a right-handed gloves cannot be used for the left-handed gloves, right? So the same manner, all the amino acids are left-handed and all the sugars are right-handed. This is one of the strangest phenomena in the universe. In the earth, why it happens? Even though every amino acid can exist as a left and a right, it's a mirror, but every time it exists as a left-handed in your body. Every amino acid has a left-handed. A living cell needs at least 239 protein molecules in 124 varieties and 400 amino acids of the left-handed variety needed. But this experiment could produce 50% right-handed and 50% left-handed. Then soon they found any experiments could not produce like nature, only left-handed. It can produce only 50-50 right-handed and left-handed. So this is a great mystery. Scientists are still not able to understand why many people are right-handed. Nature favors left-handed thing, and your amino acids are all left-handed. Now you try to cook the amino acid in your laboratory, you will always get 50% right and 50% left. So this is a great mystery. And now you see the amino acid in living things are left-handed and DNA and RNA are right-handed. So your cell needs 239 proteins in 124 varieties and 400 amino acids are needed. And finally, you put all the things together now. Let's see. To get one cell, let us try to arrange everything. Probability of one protein molecule and probability of having 239 like that. Now, with that one from a DNA molecule, if you make it, then you are getting 1 by 10 power 40,000 knots. This is amazing. That's why it's impossible by random chance to get a single cell. Biologists who work on the origin of life face major hurdle in that they end up with chicken and egg problems. They say like if DNA is needed for proteins, protein is synthesized by DNA. So what came first, DNA or proteins? So like this, now finally, Sir Fred Hoyle, he's a atheist. He said the likelihood of matter rising from non-matter is just less than 1 in a number followed with 40,000 zeros. It's big enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. And you know, that is, and he also said, now he made a comparison and stated the chance that higher life forms might have emerged in this way is comparable to the chance that a tornado sweeping a junkyard and arranging the materials to become a Boeing 747. So that much complexity it is. So now people are thinking, maybe from somewhere else, some meteor or some aliens would have brought life to this earth. So that's why they have thought that somewhere else intelligent lives are there. So they try to find out how many planets are having, like our Earth, are rotating around their own stars. So when they did, now lot of great telescopes have come. You should see in one of my YouTube videos, I have spoken about where are the extraterrestrials. So you should, in that I have spoken like how scientists have found 4,000 exoplanets. Exoplanets are planets rotating around the sun. But still now they have never found an intelligent life. They are sending and trying to listen like this girl, messages from stars. If one star, they try to listen for many years. At least some message, some signal if they would get it. But till now they have not got. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have gone beyond our solar system. They are carrying a golden record in which something about the earth is engraved. So if some alien finds it, they can know that, okay, these people are there and I'll go and meet them. But till now, nobody is there. That's called Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? There are 2 trillion galaxies, but still I couldn't find anyone because earth is so beautifully planned and designed. First life, if it cannot originate on earth, and even it cannot originate in some other planets, even if it has originated there, who started the life there? There should be a creator to start life in the other planet. So now let us see whether if we get the first life, somehow we got the first life. Now can every living being come into existence? Because Darwinian evolution is a debatable and a controversial topic. Is it because of religious feelings or is it because of scientific Today, I am going to argue that it is because of scientific reasons. Let's see why it is because of scientific reasons Darwinian evolution is wrong. Can there be a design without a designer? Francis Ayala said it was Darwin's greatest accomplishment to show that the directive organization of living beings can be explained as a result of natural process, natural selection, without need to resort to a creator or any other external agent. So the God hypothesis is ruled out. That's what people are wondering, that everything can be explained by random chance. But finally, recently, around 4 years back, in November 2016, there was an international 3-day conference on new trends in evolutionary biology. This was conducted by Royal Society in London. The conference was to take stock of evolutionary biology, where we stand at present and what are the steps to the future. So the opening presentation was done by one of the world-class biologists, and he said, Gerd Muller said, that Darwinian evolution has explanatory deficits, because he's telling a textbook new Darwinian theory has lot of deficits. So Discovery Institute in Seattle, Paul Nelson and Steve Mayer has written a lot of books like Darwin's Doubt and many others. And they say they have voiced a similar issue. The neo-Darwinian paradigm still represents central explanatory framework for evolution. But it is not right. There are a lot of errors in that. So let's see what are the problems we can have. First, let me just go to, can there be a design without a designer? So as Ayala said, it was Darwin's greatest thing that everything can come on its own. And even Dawkins argues if science is properly understood, it undermines belief in God. Why? Because before Darwin, we knew that the strongest argument for the existence of God was always a design in nature. But when Darwin came along, we know that everything can be explained by a blind, undirected process called natural selection acting on random variation. So the design is just an illusion. And by coupling the undirected, purposeless variation to the blind, uncaring process of natural selection, we have ruled out God out of the equation. However, Romans 1:20 affirms that the unseen qualities of God and the wisdom of God can be known as it is manifested in the works of creation. Just look at the horse. It has huge lungs and heart, because of which it can run fast, like how your turbochargers in your car. Look at the camel, it has a non-sinking feet. Look at elephants, everything, how beautifully it is designed. You look at this cuttlefish, it has smart materials it's made of. It can camouflage, it can change its color based on the surroundings. This bird's wings, looking at the bird's wings, have helped us to get our aeroplanes. That's what Wright brothers said. They examined the camber of the wings of birds. And penguins can survive in seawater, and humpback whales can remarkable ability to sing. And that's why Bible says in Job 12:7-10, ask the animals, they will teach you. Ask the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, it will teach you. Let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of this does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. So when Bible clearly says these two are two diametrically opposite. So now let us see which holds good. So now what is this neo-Darwinism? Neo-Darwinism is Darwinism plus genetics plus population genetics included. How it happens in 3 ways. First is, for example, Darwin saw some birds as finches. Those population became isolated. They moved to different islands. From one island to another island, they were isolated. So one or both gene pools changed. When it is geographically isolated, the mutation in one population changed, but that was not present in the other. So now first they just went to different places, they were isolated, and then in one of the thing there was a mutation. And then this mutation kept that animal separate. Now, for example, you have a lion and a tiger. Now, for example, they believe it has a common ancestor. So now lion moved to different place, geography, and tiger moved. So they became lion and tiger. Now you try to mate them, you get a sterile offspring, that is a liger. Liger cannot bring forth any other offspring. So that's why it says that, so you make two different species through this process. So he said that it is so easy that way. But actually, is it that way? I would say before presenting the scientific problems with Darwinism, let me see what are all the things Darwinian evolution is right. Everything has something which is right and something which is wrong. So let's see, because we are looking at it in a scientific way. Actually, it's a very huge subject. I might need a whole day to teach, but I will try. I'm not sure how I'm going to finish in next 15 minutes, but I'll try. You know, every organism seems to be well adapted to the environment in which it lives. The concept of selective breeding was known in Genesis chapter 30. It is said that Jacob collected spotted sheep and began breeding them specially for their coat pattern. The idea of selective breeding was that you could alter the attributes and features of a population of organisms by choosing which males and which females you're going to breed. You know, in the 13th and 14th century, Spanish sheep herders let their local sheep bred with English sheep. So the Spanish sheep bred with English sheep. So what happened is the result was a sheep called, you can Google and check it up, merino sheep. So merino sheep was a nightmare that humans made because they wanted more wool. That's why they did that one. But now this year, they found a sheep called, this one of the merino sheep name was Chris. This was lost in the wool. It had 80 pounds. It could not eat, it could not go anywhere, it could not walk till some human being can remove the wool from its body. So that much worst nightmare it had. So now that's what happens if you can do it naturally. But Darwin came and said, wait a minute, you think that an intelligent breeder like Jacob or a human being is breeding. Let's not think of an intelligent breeder. There is no intelligence. Everything is blind. It's chance. So now there are series of winters coming. And so because of the series of winter, the environment is very cold. So what happens is the outcome becomes more woolier. So environment sometimes helps the sheep to become more woolier because the cold winter is killing off the less woolier things. So survival of the fittest. So thus nature could replace the breeder. So Darwin looked at the, this is the Galapagos finches. Darwin looked at the Galapagos finches. Finches is a bird. So he said that this beaks, you can see the beaks of this finches. It changes because in one island, the main nourishment was seed. Then the finches had a hard beak. But now in another island, they wanted to get a nectar from the flower and they have to have a long beak to get the nectar because of the flowers in that peak, in that island. Some of the places, the nuts are very hard, so the beaks have to become very hard. So based on the islands, the beaks change. So he thought evolution is happening. You know why some people in cold weather, they are very fair? Because UV light from the sun causes skin cancer and dark skin protects against UV light. So when there is no light, they are very fair. They are very light skinned because they can make vitamin D more easily. So this sort of adaptation, no, this ptarmigan and this Arctic fox, they are all white because they have to tolerate the snowy winter landscapes. The ptarmigan and Arctic fox are developing that white skin to protect themselves. So these are all adaptation. Even let's see, this is one more experiment they did that they fish named guppies. That guppies were put in two different streams. In one, they didn't have any predators. In the other, they put one predator. So in the place where some other big fish is going to eat that one, they they produced more babies. But in the other places, they did not produce that much, but they became fat and they moved little slowly compared to the others. This peppered moth. This light colored moth became darker after the Industrial Revolution. Due to the pollution, the Industrial Revolution period, you can see that was a lot of pollution. So the mutation allowed dark peppered moth to blend into the surroundings. So surroundings was so dirty. So the moth also changed its color to adapt to the surroundings. In New York, they had big bed bugs in the 1940s and 50s. So they tried to introduce the DDT and other insecticides. So after some time, all the bed bugs became resistant to that insecticide. Again, there was one time there was a worldwide malaria. So in a place where a lot of mosquitoes resided. So now they developed this DDT, and after some time they saw the malaria, that bacteria has developed resistance to this antibiotics, to this DDT. That's when they were not at all useful. So you can see how they become resistant. That's why sometimes doctors, when they give you some antibiotics, they will say, though you are healed, take to the end course 5 days or 7 days, so that resistant bacteria also will be killed. So now this is a few mosquitoes have DDT resistant things. Then after the DDT was sprayed, mosquitoes that had resistant cells in their body, they survived. And then after some time, you get mosquitoes full of mosquitoes who could resist the DDT. So this is one sort of evolution. But now what is the critique of evolution? So there are three main points which I wanted to say. That is too technical, but I'll try my best. One is the first one, it's very easy. That is based on the second law of thermodynamics. You leave your car outside, after some time it becomes rusted. We all grow old and die. The same manner, every organism becomes disordered. That is a law. But now in evolution, it should be ordered to become a better species, to become a better thing. It should go into orderly fashion. That is something against second law of thermodynamics. And now coming to this problems. These are the three main problems with respect to Darwinism. You can ask any biologist with this problems. They'll not be able to explain how Darwinian methods could solve this. One is the origin of phenotypic complexity, that is the origin of eyes, ears, body plans, and others. Then novelty, because what is the overall thing is Darwinism, neo-Darwinism lacks creative power. It doesn't, it see, you just tell that a fish came from the water and it became an animal. So based on some fossils thing. But when you go in depth into fossils, how would you get the fossils? You will get one ear, you will get one small little bone. And with that bone, you have this worldview and you develop a worldview. So this is a transitional fossil. So today, many transitional fossils, whatever was told many years back, it's not a transitional fossil anymore. That much it has, because it's based on your worldview. You generate, I will show you some one or two videos to explain this. So now phenotypic complexity, your eyes are so complex, your ears, your body is so complex. So how it can, evolution can cater this. Then phenotypic novelty, the origin of new forms. So now at one point, we know about geology. That is another subject. I think you should better read my book, Beyond the Boundaries of Science. I have given about geology differently before 500 million. At that time, how the dinosaurs were killed and one meteor came and extinction, many extinction period were there. At one period called Cambrian is around 500 million years back. Suddenly, it is actually like a big bang. At that time, all the living beings of all varieties appeared together. Evolution could never explain that, because most of the animals with different body parts appeared at a time. Actually, as per the evolution, it should evolve. But when everything appeared at a time, how would you explain it? The non-gradual forms or modes of transition. So here, Darwin thought now he could find something after some 100 years, people will find lot of transitional forms, and with that, his theory can be proved. But now we are 150 years away. Still now we are blank with the transitional forms. So that shows the problem. See, Richard Dawkins says in his Blind Watchmaker, biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. So it's an illusion. You are designed for a purpose, like people are thinking. It's just a thought, it's just a dream, it's just an illusion. That's what he says, that you are not made for a purpose. So let me explain you with this explanation. This is caverns in Virginia. It has the stalagmites. These are the ones that hang from the ceilings. And they are, some of the things grow from the floor and they make beautiful patterns. There is no design. Nobody designed this. It's just a pattern. It's automatically, it has come into existence. Now, similarly, you see the snowflakes. How snowflakes come into existence. So beautiful after the snow, when you take it and see, you can see the snowflakes, the different designs. One design usually is not the same like the other. When water plus cold air plus gravity plus wind plus time gave rise to snowflakes. It's a pattern. Nobody designed it. And the same minute about tornadoes and hurricanes. But now if you see this one, which is a design and which is a pattern, this is a pattern where an eagle was automatically drawn there. But this president faces in Mount Rushmore was human fabricated, it's what made. So it's a design. So everything, there is a pattern and there is a design. You should never confuse pattern with design. If you look at DNA, it's uncannily beautiful. It's a machine code. It has this, it's almost like a language. It's like a computer program, but even far more greater than that. So it cannot come on its own. It's a set of information. You need a designer to bring this information into existence. And to have a language, you need a character, you need a letter, you need a word, you need a sentence, you need a paragraph. And the same thing in DNA, you can see everything is existing. So because of the lack of time, I'm not going in detail. Then the next one, as I said about the cell, molecular missions. Molecular machinery is needed to convert from one form of energy to higher energy. So in life, you have a lot of molecular missions. Have you heard of CAD/CAM or computer assisted design? So an engineer might be sitting at a console and he will write the same code directing a manufacturing apparatus to produce some manufacturing parts. So he is sitting at a console, but he is directing, he's writing instructions. So without writing instructions, you cannot make an aeroplane, you cannot make an automobile. So you need a set of instruction. That's what DNA is all about. So now you see the necessity of mind behind the design. So you need an intelligent designer behind it. Let me just show you one small thing. This is a bacteria, has a flagellum. So this rotates at 10,000 RPM per second. And this, this is the bacterial flagellum. How beautiful. It has a stator, it has a rotor, it has a propeller, it has a drive shaft. And can someone say that even in a small bacteria, all this so beautiful design, can they come on its own unless somebody designs it? Let me just show.
First, a protein called FlyF forms FlyF self-assertion for the attachment of others. With a motor in place as the foundation, step up to form a helical. All of these experiments have shown that flagellar, when the eggs go through ATP, it changes for
It's been fueled into the drive.
So like this, I am not going in depth. Like this, lot of small molecular emissions are in your body. Now you just take your eye. If I have to show this eye, how many piece parts are there? Even if small one, what is the importance in this molecular emissions is, if one small thing, if a lens has little issue, you cannot see. Same manner, if this is called the irreducible complexity. If one small thing like a bearing, I'm taking it out, then the whole thing becomes it cannot function. So that is called irreducible complexity. It's a specified complexity. Each and every molecular machines in our body is so complex. Can this eye evolve on its own? You just see these are some of the things they have put for evolution. But finally, to get this one, even if small one thing goes back, you cannot see. So that is an irreducible complexity. Similarly, with respect to mammalian hearing. Now people say that human, horse, cat, bat, bird, everything has a similar type of limbs. That's why they are all evolved from one another. Now let me take, if I am a designer, how will I do? I have some building blocks. I will use all the building blocks to make this so many different types. I can use the same building blocks for human. I can use the same building blocks to make a horse, to make a cat. That doesn't mean that cat evolved from horse or bird evolved from dinosaurs. Dinosaur, reptile is cold-blooded. The other one is warm-blooded. And you know, for in a reptilian thing, you have here passages bidirectional. In a bird, it is unidirectional. So how can you explain bird evolution from a dinosaur? It's impossible. I have written clearly in my book. So, this Cambrian evolution, at one point, Cambrian era, so many animal forms came into existence. This is impossible to be explained by evolution. And human intelligence is distinguished by the ability to develop complex, abstract, coherent systems. How did the human species evolve the capacity to communicate? How did your reason came into existence? How did your consciousness came into existence? You are much different from apes. How did we come to be so intelligent? How did our intelligence evolve? What is the divide between humans and other species? Why New Darwinism is far from complete. It's not a complete, it's not a theory. Since the human species is the last species evolved, that means we are the species with the highest complexity. So why not direct our own evolution? What will happen to us after some years? Now there is no survival. We need not run from any other animals to eat our food. So how would we evolve? Earlier we were running from some other animal, and that's why we tried to jump on this one, and afterwards we became a monkey, and then we became human beings. Now after some time, how would you evolve? And somebody asked in Great Evolutionist, if you turn the life back and become a monkey or something, can again the same evolution to human being come into existence? He said absolutely no, because this is one random one, just a great luck. One particular species has become a human being, so that cannot come into existence again. So he was telling that it is impossible. So that's what, it's not that easy. So now ideas have consequences. Before going into it, I wanted to say that man created God. That's what secular humanism says. God made mankind, Bible says, whereas secular humanism says man created God. As a projection of his own mind, there is no God. So your mind is creating God. So now Darwin's bulldog was Julian Huxley. And Herbert Spencer later coined the term survival of the fittest. So who is the fittest? You want to survive in this world? Try to kill all the weak things and you will survive. That inspired communism, that inspired Stalin, that inspired Hitler and many genocides and euthanasia. If you're old, why you're living? You're not needed. Eugenics. Earlier, people were, if one family, generation after generation, they are having some disease or they are weak, they will all be mass sterilized. because they don't want any other offspring from that family. So that is called eugenics. Against their wishes, they were all sterilized in the early part of 20th century. So here, human embryo is not important, people say. So these are some of the things, implications of Darwinism. Whereas in Christian theism, it says we are part of God's big story. We are made in his image. And that's why we respect one another. Your life is sacred. Your neighbor's life is sacred. Your marriage is sacred. Your neighbor's also sacred. So you value one another. Jesus came and gave his life to die on the cross. So that became altruism. You go at the expense of your life, you help somebody. Why do missionaries come to India and they help so many people? Because Jesus died on the cross and he was resurrected. He showed a path. So we all do everything for the glory of God. How do human evolution topic, some 5 minutes, I wanted to just touch upon it and then go into depth, because people go and search for bones. And if you go and get a lot of bones, you are given more money. So sometimes people even break it, they say. And one more thing is now Lachiole, that is one place they had footmarks. So one evolutionist, he saw the footmarks and he took a picture and he made a beautiful big story that humans, some Neanderthals lived there long back. And then he buried it so that nobody else will see. And then after so many years, they removed, but the footprints were not there, because they are having a lot of, why they should bury their own specimens, because they are afraid somebody will spoil it, somebody will critique it. If you are open, if you're sure that evolution is true, you should be able to produce the specimens. And there are so many Denisovans, Neanderthals, so many they have got. But go to the internet, Wikipedia, and see how many. They would say that 400 remains of Neanderthals we have got it. But all the 400 remains will be just one bone here and one head piece there and one leg piece, and might not be sometimes even in one place. They might have been found in different place. They bring it together and put it. Let me show you one video of how this dinosaurs is constructed. Then you will come to know about this human evolution. There's some people will get these bones and then they will give it to a scientist. So now he would see these bones and he would see some of this you can see in American Museum, it's kept this dinosaurs. How they formed this, you can see here. These are some of the bones which came and then they put together, and this red color one are the extra pieces that is not found. But you put it together so that you can get a diagnosis, because like this one bone you get it, and so you construct something in your mind. So you have now some 100 types of diagnosis, because how do they fill in the blanks? The same manner, even for Neanderthals, Denisovans, and many other things, at least for dinosaurs, we have a lot of fossils to show that something like this existed. But Neanderthals and Osteopteryx, nothing existed, because one head you will take and then you construct this can be based on this. So it's all based on your worldview. So Lucy, earlier they thought it is a monkey, but now they say it is a human being. Piltdown Man, it was a total hoax. You can ask them how they find the fossils, how they do everything. That's very, very important, because this sometimes alters our worldview. Now, last 5 minutes, let me finish it, because I had a lot of things to say and I'm seeing time has gone. So let me just finish it because of the lack of time. Let me see, because I think this particular topic, how humans evolved, how everything came into existence, that's everything had to be dealt separately, because each one is a subject on its own. How fossils are found. There is no chimpanzee fossil found, because some of fossilization is so difficult. And to get a fossil is very, very difficult. Sometimes people say, I got a full fossil, but you go and find a lot of pieces are missing. So that's why it's very, very important to understand and find out the truth behind all these things. First I said about the complexity, the information, who brought the information into existence, who brought your first living being, life into existence, first cell into existence. People were telling earlier, archaeopteryx, it's often depicted as a intermediary between a bird and a dinosaurs. But finally, they found that it is a full-fledged bird. It was not capable of flight. That's what. It's a bird. It was a glider bird. And similarly, a Pakicetus. That is also, they thought that they found a whale in Pakistan. So they said that some of the fish wanted to go back to the water. So some of the mammals, because fish came into the land and became a mammal, and then some of the mammals wanted to go back to the water, and then they became whale, because whale is a mammal. So then they had to find something intermediary. So now I have a worldview. I keep searching for such things. And when I get a little, some fossils or based on that, I construct my worldview based on that. So this is not a scientific way of doing it. Science needs a proper reasoning and a critic. You should be able to be critic about that. People, you should allow others to critic. Then only you will be able to grow, because they say that Homo floresiensis, it's about the little people found in the island of Flos. Because that skull, what they found was small, it's a diminutive stature, they thought it's little people. So, so this was just a brain disorder. Possibly somebody was telling it's possibly a brain disorder, some skull they would have found. So you have both sides arguments. But now I wanted to say today that evolution is not a theory. It needs if you want to bring it as a theory, it should be able to provide lot of evidence, and at least one species, how they change. It should not be only adaptation. Adaptation is not evolution. So adaptation is microevolution that is happening every time. But adaptation is not evolution. So let me conclude it. I wanted to say that we are all so beautifully and wonderfully made by the hand of God. And God has created us so beautifully so that we will reflect his glory. And we will able to give answer for those who question us. And we should be sure there is no need to defend our worldview. Because some people think that they have to tell that we have to fight for this. But when you are sure that you are made by God, you are having Holy Spirit inside who speaks to you, there is no need for anybody to instruct you. God himself instructs you what it is and how it is. He speaks to us. He is in our hearts. That's why we have day and day out, we live with him and he gives us wisdom. Today, some of you are here thinking that why my life has gone to this direction. You see, everything is properly designed. There is a designer behind everything. Might be whatever you're going through can have a design at the back. One needle teacher was telling a story because she gave her needlework to a child. The child was seeing the backside and she said it was so bad, but she asked her to turn the other side of the needlework. It looked so beautiful. Maybe you're seeing the bad side in your life, but God, when you commit your life to God, he will do a beautiful masterpiece. That's why Romans 8:28 says, everything happens good for those who love the Lord, who are the called as per his purpose. When I faced a depression 20 years back, I was walking towards the path of suicide. I thought there is no God. I had my fist against God. I was angry on God. But finally, one day, when I was put on a ventilator because of pneumonia, and I thought there is no use in living, then I met this God who created the 2 trillion galaxies. I saw the cross. I saw the blood of Jesus coming and covering my sins. I heard a voice, I'm giving you new life 3 times. And all the 5 days I was there, I felt his presence embracing me. And I came out, something was telling me to read the Bible. Started reading, and I found he has a purpose behind it. I could finish my PhD because I know he lives in me. I could finish my Master of Divinity, MA in Christian Studies and others. And I could write 2 books, one on abuse and the other on the beyond the boundaries of science. So everything is just because he lives in us. We are made in his image. He is humble, and that makes us to remain humble. And he is powerful. He has given us authority, so we know our power in his kingdom. So there is no need to fear. So these are some of the implications of becoming his child. So let me end it with a prayer. Precious Father, Lord, you spoke today. And Lord, how beautifully you created. Ask the animals, ask the birds, they will tell. Lord, let us look into the nature, look at the world outside and see the design and see the beauty and see the love and see the things that you have created so beautifully. Lord, we know that you have a design and purpose in our life also. Let's come to know the purpose that you have in our life. And Lord, let our life exactly be aligned with your purpose. And Father, today, whoever are here, bless them richly. Let them be able to stand for your glory and become your instruments for your glory in this world. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
I thank you, Dr. Latha, for your wonderful talk. Now it is open for question time. So any of you have any questions or doubts, you may ask now. Or you can put it in the chat box, you will answer.
Somebody has returned whether this session will be available online. I will put it in my YouTube channel. lathachristie.com is my website. I have a YouTube channel, LATHA's Christie, and you can, after a week, you will be able to get it from there. Or you can write to me, I can send it to you. You can unmute them, everyone, so they can ask questions.
Yes, ma'am. Now they can unmute the participants. Please unmute yourself. You are now able to unmute yourself and please ask questions.
So when we tell an atheist that every design needs a designer, they always resort to asking the annoying question as to who designed God then. Yes. So who created God? Who designed God? If you go on back and back, finally you end up in God. So now I wanted to ask you two questions. You put before them, if they don't believe in God, what did they believe that created them? For example, now an atheist will say, the universe was eternal. There is no need for the universe to come into existence. But science has clearly proved that the universe, everything started at a single point, at one time beginning. So if there is a one-time beginning, now scientists are breaking their head. Who created that everything so beautifully designed? Even the critical rate of expansion 1 second after the Big Bang would have been changed by 1 part in 1 quintillion, million. The whole universe would have crumbled. The laws of gravity, everything is finely tuned. Who tuned it? Who designed it? So now, if you don't want to accept God as your creator, you should ascribe the creative power to quantum fluctuations or to force of gravity. Now, who created force of gravity? Force of gravity, does it have a brain or design to design? So I have put the same video, just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You can just see in my YouTube who created God, and this answer will be there. So it's easy. Either you can believe in an eternal universe, which is wrong scientifically, or you should believe that a random chance quantum fluctuation created or God created. Hope mine was not too technical. I had still a lot of things I couldn't speak.
It was a wonderful session. It was basic only. Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah, please tell me.
Yes. Actually, since the evolution theory is beset with so much of problem, the Urey-Miller theory, it is a disputed one now, but still we are getting Urey-Miller theory in all the standard textbooks of biology. So how can we explain that? Is it because of some motive, or people are not checking with the scientific facts?
No, we should be open enough to check scientifically. You should be having reason. So that when it doesn't happen, I'm not sure. Like it's so dangerous actually. When you teach evolution, also teach the problems of evolution. You can teach, there is nothing wrong, but also teach evolution. When you're telling Neanderthals exist, it's only the bones here and there you're not getting the full body. Even I was thinking earlier, I got the complete, so many Neanderthals. When my son and me used to argue at that time, I didn't have much understanding. But then when I understood about molecular emissions inside each cell, I understood about the Neanderthals' bones and this and that, everything. I understood that this is impossible. So I think some committee or something in a national level or international level has to form and ask. It's no need to question. We need to question everything. That is science. When we accept something as theory, you should ask for evidence, complete evidence. And so you need not teach about God in the school, but you can teach about how through chance the whole complexity cannot come into existence. That's what we say. I'm not telling that you become a creationist or anything. Just express that what are the faults with this theory, what are the limitations of this theory. Every theory has limitation. What happened to the giants who lived in biblical times? Somebody is asking me, what happened to the giants who lived in biblical times? As I said, adaptation could be one of the reasons. In those days, they had to be too huge to fight against the animals and others. And one more thing is, people believe that everything came into existence exactly in 6,000 years. But Bible is not telling. When I tell this everywhere, people just wonder where it is written. Evening and morning was the first day, evening and morning was the second day. But why don't you think that some human being, God is revealing 7 consecutive days? If God is revealing 7 consecutive days, the sequence of creation, first thing that came into existence is light. So when you can see in the first light photons came, then the second firmaments, how earth was specially created. And then one by one it is coming. So why not God could have revealed 6 consecutive days to Moses as given in Exodus 24. So it can be many paths. When the Bible is silent, we should be silent because many times we try to put our views. That's why people say this day the world is going to end. Many people are coming and telling false prophecies from the beginning that this is the day world is going to end, that is the day world is going to end. Bible clearly says that I will come like a thief and no one can find the day when I'm going to come, but I will come. The same manner the world was created by God, but how many days, it's not given. Let us be silent about it. And one more thing is, man was created in God's very own image. He did not come from any other ape-like creature. That is clearly written in the Bible. And because we are made in his image, and an ape does not have a social network like us. Can 2 apes hold a log of wood and walk? Do they have a language like us? It's impossible. How did consciousness come into existence? How did reason come into existence? So the giants, what you see in the biblical days, could have changed the stature because of adaptation.
There are 2 more questions in the chat box. Can genetics predict the character of a person? And this is a question from Sanjeev Shashikant.
See, genetics alone does not determine your character. I have seen many cruel fathers getting wonderful children. Environment and how you are taught. And many times very cruel people have changed after encountering Jesus. We were all sinners, saved by grace. Like how, like beggars showing to the other beggar, there is food here. We are all saved by God and we are showing to somebody else. Here is God. He can change you. He can do something amazing. That's what God changes. So genetically, sometimes some of the things like diseases and other things we can inherit. Sometimes anger can come. Sometimes, but everything can be kept in place. Sometimes some hormones can be wrong. But people say genetically, I'm born in a different way and others. But when you want to give glory to God, you know what God wants. And that's when you sit personally with God, God speaks to us and he guides us. And that way he changes us. He transforms anybody. He can transform anyone.
So there is another question. What about some who believe in theistic evolution or God-guided evolution?
Yeah, many Christians believe that God has started the evolutionary process and through which he created. Some of my relatives also say that way, but I wanted to ask you that if you can ask them how from one complex life form into another complex life form, it came, they will not have answer. And they might have now one mitochondrial Eve and to one Adam, like that, some 10,000 species at some million years back, it should be there. They are coming to a conclusion based on some of the studies, but the studies by some constant, you can make the changes. Because I went to Discovery Institute there, one engager, she's telling Adam and Eve, through scientifically, she is proving Adam and Eve could have existed one pair from which all these pairs can come into existence. So through some of the constants, you can change the number of years in your calculations. So what I would like to say is, it's based on your worldview. Levinton, he says that, I will not allow any divine foot to enter the door. He's telling openly, I will not allow any divine foot to enter the door. So their worldview is so strong, even if God comes and tells, I'm God, they will never accept it. So somebody has put, is it one-time creation or six-day creation or successive creation? Because the age of the earth, again, in do you agree between Genesis 1:1, we can fit in million years? I don't believe in any gap theory or anything that says that 1:1 and God made it all good and then again it became bad, again it became good. So God is a God of beauty, of creation and everything. And he created one. First you read the first verse of the Bible. God, in the beginning, everything started in the beginning. In the beginning, God. Somebody, I read a newspaper, it was written, in the beginning was monkey. So either you can have in the beginning was God or in the beginning was monkey. So in the beginning, God created heavens and earth. Heavens can be how many amount of galaxies, because in the Hebrew Bible, there is no word for universe. There is no word for galaxies. So when you translate from one version to another, you should have all these things into existence. And now, if you translate that number of days as 7 consecutive days, where a person is getting revelation, then you can fit in any number of years. It can be 6,000, it can be 10,000, it can be 1 million, it can be 1 billion. Why should we bother about the number of years? When we go to heaven, we'll come to know. But God is clearly telling, first I created light. There was nothing like darkness. Darkness existed in the beginning, but then light came into existence. Light photons were released. The first star started blasting light into the universe. In the beginning is 6,000 years old. So that's what I'm telling. Who told you it is 6,000 years? That was one man. He framed 4,000 years back. He's one archbishop. He said that I've created a date also. That date, God created everything. So because sometimes we are so, we wanted to have a control on the things around us. That's why we sometimes try to calculate. But the genealogies are not the proper genealogies. Like I have read a book. Some of the genealogies are left out. He has clearly given between some of the generations. So, and those days people were living for 500, 800 years. So because in those days there were very thick ozone layers, very thick all the protective layers. So our age was long. So we didn't know how many years it could have been. 15,000 or 20,000 human beings could have existed. So we are not sure. When we are not sure, better to be silent. That's what I believe. So what is the age of the earth? As per science, when they see all this radioactivity, age of the our earth is 4 billion years, 4.5 billion years. And age of the universe is 13.7 billion years. That's what scientists now, based on the telescope and very, very clear instruments, they are able to get the exact age of the earth and the exact age of the universe. Please answer the question, can human race come from Adam and Eve from scientific perspective? Yes, that's what you go and see the book written by Anne Gager on human origins. She says, but she does not say 6,000 years. She says some half a million or some years back, there was one Adam and Eve, and from that everybody descended. So that is her book on human origins by Anne Gager. Annengauger. Or viruses created by God? Is there any reason? So, see, many viruses, some people are telling they are not even having life because they occupy a living being, and then they live based on that organism they have occupied. So, so many things that are in the world which may not be good, but may be good for something else. So we think that this is not good. Why at all it is existing? That's what some of the atheists say, that if God is so intelligent, he wouldn't have designed all these things. But later, when they understood as an overall perspective, every living organism is needed. For example, bacteria eat upon all the unnecessary waste. Otherwise, there is waste will be there existing. So everything is created by God. There is a reason for everything.